Slow Clap is alive and well. I keep getting older. They're going to start calling me the grandpa of youth ministry. So it's on the way. But I'm already ready for that. I'll be okay with that. Hey, how many have cried more this week than they have in 5 years? Am I the only one? Oh my God, I do not consider myself an emotional person. I was bawling last night. I was bawling the night before. My wife, she loves it when I share emotion. She's like, oh, it's so good. His heart's coming alive. He's not a robot. There's something, he's not dead. I mean, there was times in our marriage where she thought, I think he's dead inside. But the older I get, it's coming. And I got to tell you, the Waterworks works with the ladies, especially my wife. This is good. This is good for me. Camp is good for my soul. Hey, we've been in this series. We're calling it Straight Up Bible. And we've been talking about this guy named Daniel. And we've really been looking at this. How do you live for Jesus when it seems like no one else you know is? And doesn't that sometimes feel like how it feels in school? And people have different stories, different ways of how they grew up and lived. I'm one of those that I found Jesus when I was 5 years old in the bathtub. Yeah, my mom led me to Christ in the bathtub, and that's a vulnerable spot to find Jesus. But my mom was kind of an intimidating person, and so I was like, okay, I should do that. I remember 8 years old, I'm at camp, and pretty much from 8 until now, I've responded to every message or altar call there is. I don't always go forward, but every time I'm like, yeah, God's talking to me. That's it. He's speaking to me. And my entire life, I've just served Jesus. And that's my story. And I think there's some of you here that you're going, does anyone ever do that? It seems like I hear stories all the time of well, I didn't do it in high school, but yeah, people do it. And one of the people we're talking about today is Daniel, and he's one of those guys that lived for Christ his whole life. You say, well, how does someone do that? That's what we're focused in. And Wes started on the first day, and he said, you've got to have purpose. And this is something that I want to encourage you to write down. The biggest vision wins. The biggest vision wins. You got to have purpose. You have to have something in your heart that when everyone's not serving Jesus, you've got to say, I have a bigger vision than getting drunk on the weekend. I got a bigger vision than having sex with someone that will never remember my name and just thinks I'm cute today. You have to have a bigger vision than that. And the thing about it is Daniel had this vision that God would use him in a nation. And that vision caused him to do such incredible things that thousands of years later, we're still talking about Daniel. And I wonder what kind of vision and purpose God is going to put in your heart so that when you go back to your campus this next year, you're going to say, you know what? When everybody else is bowing down before Baal, I'm going to be serving Christ. Day 2, Tom talked about pressure. Say, I like pressure, and I don't know why, but here's what I know. Pressure makes you great. Pressure makes you great. You have to actually learn how to put yourself in positions where you feel pressure. How many feel pressure when you're at school and there's a test? The first few times you do it, you buckle under the pressure. You'll fail. I remember when I first started speaking as a youth pastor. I was a youth pastor. We had about 17 kids. It wasn't in this youth group. It was in a youth group before that. And we had 17 kids for a year because I was a horrible speaker. Horrible. No one wanted to listen to me. I'd preach out of these old Oswald Chamber books to junior hires, and they're like, I don't know what you're talking about, man. I just kept doing it. Finally, they're like, oh, that's not so bad. But it was this pressure. And sometimes we run for pressure, but pressure makes you great. So put yourself in positions where you're going to face pressure. It will challenge you. It'll make you great. The more you do that, you'll grow. Today, what I want to look at is, so Daniel, in this next chapter, we're going to see in verse 6, is Daniel makes it personal. He makes it personal. And what I want to encourage you to write down is this, is when you meet with God on your own, it makes your relationship with Jesus personal. How many know we're not going to be here next week? Turn to your neighbor and say, we're not going to be here next week. I would like to be. I mean, I'm having fun. I could do another week at camp. I'm in on that, but we're not going to be here. So the question is this, is what will your relationship with God look like next week? How is it going to be personal? See, for Daniel, it was personal. He had a faith that was in his heart. You say, Brandon, how did you live for Jesus from 5 to 40? Somewhere along the way, it got personal for me in my relationship with God. It wasn't about whether my friends were serving Jesus or not. It's about what Jesus was saying to me. That moment for me happened when I was at a camp like this and someone challenged me to read the Bible before I graduated high school. How many are seniors? You have a ton of work to do. Okay, I want to challenge everybody here to read the Bible before you graduate high school. If you're here and you're graduated and you've never read the Bible, I want to challenge you to read the Bible this next year. Make it personal. How can you say you're a follower of Jesus if you've never read the Bible? How can you follow Jesus if you don't know what he taught? And somewhere along the way, your faith has to go from, hey, I really serve Jesus great at camp when other people are making me cry and it's powerful and it's emotional, to I'm going to own my faith with Jesus. I'm going to make it personal. And what I'd like to suggest, it's practice that makes it personal. It's practice that makes it personal. Daniel was someone who practiced spending time with Jesus, and it changed him. It's what gave him the kind of faith that could transform a nation that we talked about years ago. Now, we're about to start the Olympics. How many like the Olympics? You know, how many don't think about the Olympics at all, but suddenly like the next 10 days, you're going to be a gymnastics judge, a diving judge. I mean, you're going to be like, oh man, I was watching the dive and I just feel like his toes weren't pointed. And do you ever make the mistake, like I'll watch like the guys on the rings and they'll do like the most incredible stuff. They'll do like an iron cross, just, and you're just like, that is awesome. Like, how do they do that? I'm so goofy. I went out and I have gymnastic rings in my garage. I'm not kidding. Some of you are like, no, I have them in my garage. And you know what I did? I installed those rings in my garage and I said, I'm going to do like some cool gymnastic stuff. Well, I'm 6'4". I'm way too tall to be a gymnast, but I'm weird like that. I do weird things like this. See, here's what I found when I installed the rings. So, you know, one of the things they do is they get on the rings and just hold in this position right here. Now, no one is even impressed by that. But do you know it took me 6 months to do that? Like I didn't go iron cross. I'd rip my arms right out of the sockets. I'd just be like, you know, they would rip out. You know, or how many I actually you watch those divers. Has anyone ever jumped off of a platform diving board, the one that's like 25 feet high? Okay, I've done that. You watch that and you're like, you know what? I think like in a week, maybe I could do like a flip. You walk up there, you stare down, you're like, oh my goodness, I am gonna die. It is, you'll watch, you know, or just think about this. What if we like had one of those, like, you know, the women's gymnastics where they run and then they hit that vault and then they like hit their hands on it and flip in the air and then land? What if I just like lined that up over here and be like, we're all gonna just run at that sucker as hard as we can and see what happens? How many know you just be like, I'm gonna die, man, I'm gonna die. We'd have people just hauling out on stretchers, you know, like people would just like miss it completely and just, I gotta throw it. I mean, it would just be nuts. But you watch that stuff and you're like, that is amazing. People are amazing. How did they do that? Practice. Do you know how many times they ran at that vault when no one was looking? I just sit up there and I watch these artists that play music. They just play for hours. Did you know I took 7 years of piano? 7 years, practiced hours. Like I wasn't like the guy who took piano but didn't practice. I was the guy who took piano and practiced. The music teacher said, so you're not getting it. So then I switched to guitar. I took guitar for 3 years, practiced guitar. Still struggle with that. Finally, my teacher said, you know, I think I figured out your problem. You're tone deaf and you can't carry a beat. That is going to make it hard for you to be a musician. Or you got to have some personal aptitude to it. So I'm like, okay, so that's like not my thing. I remember like one day, like I woke up and it was Thanksgiving And it was in the morning at like 7 in the morning, and I heard like 500 people cheer. And I was like, wow. I mean, people are excited for me. And I look out the window, and there's this turkey trot 5K race happening right outside. So I'm like, I'm going to go do it. So I went out, and I like ran a 5K without practice. And how many know that first mile, I was like, this is awesome. Then I got second mile. I'm like, this is getting harder. And then I got to like halfway through that second mile, and I had to lean over and throw up because I had ran a little too fast, right? Have you ever done that? I mean, it's just like you're just done. Well, that next year I said, I'm going to run a turkey trot. I'm going to try and do it really good. So you know what I did is I practiced like 3 days a week running a 5K. Show up, the turkey trot comes. I ran that thing in 25 minutes, and for an old guy, I felt pretty good about that. And you know what's funny is I had in my mind that everybody who's finishing under 25 minutes must be just exhausted when they come across the finish line. And you know what? I looked at this. The people that are coming in at 35 and 40 minutes, they look way more exhausted than the people coming in under 25 minutes. And I realized this, the people that are coming in under 25 minutes on a turkey trot, that wasn't the hardest run they did that week. They do it all the time. They're like, yeah, the people that run it in 17 minutes, some of you, you know, you're a track athlete, you run that 17 minutes, you're like, yeah, I'll do that tomorrow. Like, they're not like, wow, I did, like those gymnasts, they're not going, I wonder if I'm going to be able to stick this flip today or not. Because they do it all the time. And today we're going to pick up our story with Daniel, and we're really going to ask this question. What would cause someone to say, I won't give up prayer, I'd rather be fed to a lion? Because I just think if I said, hey, just so you know, anybody who prays the rest of this day, I got a lion's den over here and you're going in there. I think some of you'd be like, I'm good, I don't pray anyway. I think that's how most of Israel was. But there was something inside of Daniel that said this, I don't think I could live without prayer. How do you get to that spot? That's what we're going for. So we'll pick this up. Daniel chapter 6. It says, it pleased Darius, that's the king at the time, to set over the kingdom 120 satraps, which are like leaders. Oh, I'm going to need that. That's my notes. Can you hand me that? Thank you. You're kind. The message would have got a lot worse without that. To be throughout the whole kingdom, and over them 3 officials, of whom Daniel's who we're talking about. Daniel was one, to whom these satraps should give an account, so that the king might suffer no loss. Then this Daniel became distinguished above all the other high officials and satraps because an excellent spirit was in him. And the king planned to set him over the whole kingdom. We'll pause right there. So here we see Daniel. They have 120 people that are helping lead this kingdom, and then they've set 3 people over those 120. You can see this, that Darius was an incredible organizer, and then of the 3, Daniel rose to the second in command in a kingdom. How many know that he had to have something inside of him that caused him to do it? And you know what it says right there in the Bible? It says he had an excellent spirit. An excellent spirit. I want you to write in your notes the word attitude. Attitude. Attitude gets rewarded, period. In other words, if you have a bad attitude, you're going to get rewarded by getting demotions your whole life. Isn't that encouraging? Just a natural encourager, right? I mean, you're just going to get demoted. But if you have a great attitude, you're going to get promoted, period, bar none. And here's the thing. Some of you got a challenge. You were raised with people who had bad attitudes. Don't raise your hand. And somewhere along the way, you got told that that's just how you're supposed to act. But did you know you can change that with practice? What if you practiced your attitude? I'm going to give you 3 things to practice to have a great attitude. Number 1, everybody can do this. Smile. Look at your neighbor and smile. Did you know people are more attracted to you if you smile? Say, I want to be attractive. I'm going to smile more. Is it working? That's kind of creepy, wasn't it? Smile appropriately and smile to the right person, right? Like if you get in an elevator alone with someone and you start smiling at them, that could go bad. Or it could go great. You don't know. Smile. Greet people with energy. Greet people with energy. Okay, can you help me? It won't be painful. Okay, come up here. Okay, what's your name? Caitlin. Here's how you have a great attitude. Caitlin comes walking in the room. You're doing good. Hi. How many think she's really happy about that? What if Caitlin comes walking in the room? Okay, come walking in the room. Caitlin, I've missed you. It's so good to see you. Come on, give it up for Caitlin, right? Thank you, Caitlin. You did awesome. Didn't she do good? Right? Did you know when someone comes in the room and you greet them with energy, it says they're important? How many know that if someone comes in and you greet them and you're excited, they're like, this is awesome. It immediately says this person has a good attitude. Here's the third thing on attitude. Third thing on attitude is this, is you have to think about solutions, not problems. You have to think, people with good attitudes try and figure out how to solve things. And I think Daniel was one of those guys that a king needed around him. And I think the reason why the king needed him around is Daniel was a solution finder. It doesn't take any intelligence to find problems. Everybody sees them everywhere. It takes someone that's an incredible leader to find problems. And people with good attitudes are looking for those problems. It says Daniel had this excellent spirit among them. Let's keep reading. It says, then the high officials and the satraps sought to find a ground for a complaint against Daniel with regard to the kingdom. But they could find no ground or complaint or any fault because he was faithful, and no error or fault was found in him. So then these men said, we shall not find any ground for complaint against this Daniel unless we find it in connection to the law with his God. The second thing I wrote down is that people are watching, and some of them want you to fail. Now, you think you're doing the right thing, and so people should cheer for you, right? Like some of you, you're going to go back home, and you're going to tell someone that matters to you, that you care about, I made a decision to follow Jesus. And you know what they're going to say to you? So what? Who cares? How many know that's going to hurt? And I don't say that to be mean. I say that to prepare your heart. To prepare your heart to say, look, not everybody's going to receive this decision. Not everybody's going to be happy. Here's Daniel. He's doing his best to serve the kingdom, to be a leader, to have an excellent spirit. And basically everybody else says, let's make a pact to destroy this guy. And here's what I think. When you decide to stand out and have an excellent spirit, there will be people in your life that don't like it. But just because they don't like it doesn't mean that you shouldn't live it out. You should fight for it. So here's Daniel. These people, they make a pact. It says these high officials and satraps, they came by an agreement to the king and said to him, O King Darius, live forever. All the high officials of the kingdom, the prefects, the satraps, the counselors, and the governors are agreed that the king should establish an ordinance to enforce an injunction that whoever makes a petition to any god or man for 30 days, except you, O king, shall be cast into the lion's den. Now, O king, establish the injunction and sign the document so that it cannot be changed according to the laws of the Medes and Persians, which cannot be revoked. Therefore, King Darius signed the document and the injunction. And so these whole group of people, they came against him. That's the third thing. People will come against you. They'll come against you. They'll team up against you. There'll be whole groups of people that come against you. I remember feeling like that when I was a teenager. As a teenager, I remember I had a close friend from third grade all the way through sixth grade. He was like my best friend. And something happened in junior high that he didn't want to serve Jesus anymore. And so what he did is in seventh grade, he went around and told all of my friends that Brandon's like this Jesus pastor guy and you should just ignore him. And I lost my best friend. It hurt. But my faith, it stayed strong and it stayed steady. And he and I never became friends all the way through, but I always was polite and nice to him, even though he was mean to me. In my senior year, he came up to me. He said, I want you to know I respect you more than anybody else in this school because when I was mean to you, you were nice to me. He was watching. He was watching. I never would have known that. I never would have thought that. But something inside said that he paid attention. And I think this, people will watch you even if you feel like they're judging you. So here's what happens, verse 10. It says, when Daniel knew that the document had been signed, he went to his house where the windows in his upper chamber opened toward Jerusalem. He got down on his knees there 3 times a day and prayed and gave thanks to God, thanks before his God as he had previously done. I underline this phrase, as he had previously done. See, Daniel was someone who practiced prayer. And he knew this, that people would come against him. He knew that not everybody would be for him. He knew that people would be behind him. But somewhere along the way, he had made it personal in his faith with God. And because it became personal, he had a practice of daily prayer in his life. And it was so personal that it absolutely transformed the way he was living, transformed his life, because prayer was something that he had decided that he can't live without. I would like to develop hundreds of teenagers that would literally say to themselves, I can't live without prayer. I've been reflecting all week on this passage, and I realized somewhere along the way, Daniel's faith became so strong that he knew that life without God was no life at all. And so when people told him he couldn't pray, what did he do? Go hide in the corner, cry, get nervous, walk to the upper room, boom, open the windows. If you're wondering who I serve, let me get down on my knees, face Jerusalem so everybody knows I'm praying to Yahweh, the one true God, the King of Kings, who's the King of Darius and the King of everybody else. That's who I'm praying to. Somewhere there was this conviction that made it personal. And my heart for you is that somewhere inside of you, that your faith would grow so deep, it didn't matter if everybody else was against you. You knew this, that if I stand with God, he will stand with me. And if there's one thing Daniel knew, is that when you stand for God, even if nobody else does, God stands with you. You got to believe that he knew the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. He knew when they got thrown in the fire that Jesus was standing right there in the fire with them. Some of you, you're going to go back this week and you know this. You're not going back to open arms. Oh, we're so excited about the decision you made. No, you're going back to the fire. And you're going to have to decide who you're going to stand for. And I want to encourage you, when you stand with Christ, he stands with you even when no one else. So Daniel knew that. So when the king came and has panicked and Daniel, these guys trapped me and I'm going to have to follow through and I'm going to throw you in this den. I don't believe Daniel was worried. I was talking to my friend and he said, it's not Daniel in the lion's den, it's the lion in Daniel's den. There is something inside of Daniel that says, I know my God will stand with me. It's probably a reminder that God is called the Lion of Judah. And if God is the king of Darius, he's certainly the king of those lions. So Daniel goes into the lion's den, and you guys know the story. You know what happens. The lions don't harm him. They don't touch him. Daniel says, let God be my judge. That's what his name literally means. Let God be my judge. And God stands with him. And for some of you, you're going to have to decide who will be your judge. You're going to allow your friends, you're going to allow your critics to be your judge. Here's the thing, if you let your critics be your judge, you'll spend the rest of your life trying to please unpleasable people. If you let God be your judge, you'll work from a place of approval and honor, knowing that your Father in heaven loves you, fights for you, and stands with you. And it will give you that kind of conviction. As we close today, I'm going to close with prayer. And my prayer will be this, is that you will find a personal relationship with God this year that is so personal that no one would take it away from you. What would it take for you to say, I'd rather be thrown in the lion's den than give up prayer? For me, It would have to be so personal that I knew I couldn't live without that relationship. If someone were to take my kids and said, I'm either going to take your kids or throw you in the lion's den, I said, throw me in the lion's den. Because I love my kids. I feel the same way about my wife. Somewhere along the way, Daniel had a personal relationship with Jesus that was so personal that he knew Christ. And my heart for you is that you would find it. I believe you'll find it when you practice prayer, when you practice Bible reading. It will be what makes you strong. It will be what you turn to when everyone else is against you. And it will be what gives you the courage to have a big purpose and a big vision in life. So Jesus, I pray for every one of these students, God, that you would build habits in their heart that would allow them to spend personal time with you, to help them through lion den moments in their life. Give them strength and conviction. Give them a big vision and a dream that will last forever, and use these guys in a mighty way. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.